You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cricket Podcast for another smash hit episode. We've got the 100. We're going to do a power ranking on the men's side. We're going to talk Tammy Beaumont on the women's side. We've got Ben Stokes coming out of retirement, and we've got India in a complete shambles. What more could you want for a two-part episode of the Cricket Pod? We'll start with the 100, and then we'll move on to other topics in part 2. So, join us. Get involved, like, subscribe, comment, follow somewhere else. Go to the Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Follow there and sign up to Patreon, patreon.com/the Cricket Pod. I'm Jack Hope. That was a long intro with lots of instructions, and I'm joined by Max Rowe-brown. How are you doing, Max Rowe-brown?
Hello. Very good. Thank you. Yes. Well, good set of instructions and one's worth following. So, yeah, I just second all of it, really.
Yeah, absolutely right. We're going to try and do. We tried to do a 40-minute show last week, Max, and then I started doing things like this where I completely tangentially take the show
Derailed everything.
Derail it, and then it ended up being 53 minutes. So we're going to aim more for the 40-minute mark,
right?
And we're going to get straight into the cricket. We're going to start with the 100 on the women's side. We'll do a little summary of what's happened, the key talking points, and then we want to talk Tammy Beaumont, who became the first women's player to notch 100 in the 100 for Welsh Fire today in a scintillating innings. Finished on 114, Max. That's a lot of runs.
118.
It's 118. I always get 4 and 8 mixed up. 4 and 8. I don't know why. I mean, I suppose they're multiples of each other, aren't they? But whatever. So here's the executive summary, Max. We have had a bunch of good matches. We've had the Superchargers winning a ridiculous game against Trent Rockets with an epic collapse. 4 runs. I've said 4 runs. It's 9 runs. I've got 4, 9, and 8 mixed up on this episode. Then that match was followed up with a 5-run win for Oval over Manchester, which also included, I think, 3 wickets off the last 6 balls. Max, we were at that one. It was sunny. It was lovely at the Oval after a rain-off in the men's game the night before. There was a result in the women's game. We've had a 3-run win for Welsh Fire over Phoenix. We've had the Superchargers manoeuvring themselves into a great position with a couple of victories. And we have got a situation, Max, where after, basically 5 matches for most of the sides, the Southern Brave, the Superchargers and the Welsh Fire are slightly adrift of the other teams, leaving Oval Invincibles, who are, of course, chasing the three-peat, slightly behind the race. Max, on the women's side, first question, have you enjoyed the action? Do you think the top 3 teams are the best 3 teams? Do you think it's a bit weird as well that we've seen maybe a slightly unequal tournament so far? Give me your thoughts, and then we'll talk Tammy.
Yeah, I think it is a bit odd, given especially the fact that you've got the resurgence of Welsh Fire this year, who, there's no nice way of putting how they've been in the last 2 iterations of the 100.
Bad.
So I probably won't do it. Probably won't say it. It's just not worth even repeating, because I mean they were an abomination. They were a disgrace to the game. But they're back. They're back with a bang. And you'd think that would kind of level the playing field a bit, because when you get kind of the term is whipping boys. I suppose whipping girls would be the women's 100 variant. And when you get that, you sort of you get teams sort of head off towards the top with a few easy wins, and you get like a couple of teams that pull away, but then you sort of have this sort of middling area where things are a bit of a melting pot, I suppose. But it's really stretched out this time, and that's even more odd given how much of it's been rained off. But if you had a team called No Result, they'd be mid-table with their 1 points. So it's I guess it's a testament to those teams, isn't it, that have gone and stretched themselves up the table. Obviously, Welsh Fire have got that extra game under their belt, so there's the opportunity for some of the other teams to put it back. But net run rate wise as well, they've made a statement, haven't they? It's been they're the teams to beat. So provided there isn't a whole lot more rain, hopefully for them. Well, hopefully there'll be an opportunity for one of the others to maybe make a late play. But at the moment, it's looking like those top 3 are in a pretty pretty solid position.
Yeah, they're in a decent position. Yeah, I mean, if Oval win, I think they go to 7 points, which puts them there or thereabouts, certainly within range of the top 3. And if they win all 3 of their matches, you'd expect them to qualify. And I still think, for my money, that they are the best side. I think it's Marizani Cap who's out injured for the rest of the tournament, so that's a little bit of a worry for them. But they're pretty good anyway. So I think there's the chance they could come back. The rest of them, though, they have left themselves reasonably far adrift, which means that we won't be seeing players. I don't think we'll be seeing players like Sophie Eccleston, obviously in charge of the Manchester Originals later in the tournament, which is a bit of a shame from a domestic English point of view. There have been a few decent individual performances worth shouting about as well. We've teased Tammy Beaumont a few times, and we'll get to her in a moment. But streaking away at the top of the wickets table, Georgia Adams with 12 wickets. That's 3 clear of Shabnim Ismail, who herself has a match-winning hat trick.
Yes,
that was
of course
good.
was let go by Oval Invincibles, the double winning Oval Invincibles, and now top of the table with Welsh Fire. So maybe that's looking like maybe that's the big problem for Oval. Maybe a bit less pace in the bowling attack has robbed them of a bit of bite, so to speak.
If I remember correctly, she maybe struggled for wickets slightly last year, but I always think whenever I see her bowl, that she's one of the most exciting players in the women's game. Someone who can almost touch 80 miles an hour, which is a massive difference maker. And taking a hat trick right at the end of a game when things go for balance, it's like that's almost like winning a match by yourself, or it's as close as you can come to winning a match by yourself, I think. So that's been good. And then obviously the massive performance that we've seen so far is Tammy Beaumont today for Welsh Fire. Max, do you know it was 114, 118? I want to say I've 61 balls. Am I correct?
Correct.
61 balls?
Yeah. So you got 6 and 1 there in your brain. They work.
We had a lot of shots down the ground. What I quite liked about it, I think, with the number of like traditional cricket shots, cleanly struck extra cover drives or straight drives, that sort of thing that made up this innings. By a distance, the best innings I think we've seen in the women's 100. Top batting, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, well, firstly, Tammy Beaumont, what a year, what a summer it's been for her. Obviously, the 200 in the Ashes. First English woman ever to score a double 100 in Test cricket. Now following it up, being the first woman to score 100 in the 100. First ever women's 100, if you want to put it annoyingly. And it was a real display. It was also interesting that this is someone who hasn't been in the England T20 squad because they opted for people with more power, more explosive batters up the order. So that's sort of a statement from Tammy Beaumont as well. What I found particularly impressive was just you talk about the clean striking, but obviously what goes along with that is the percentage of runs coming from boundaries, or the percentage of scoring shots from boundaries. Basically, she scored 118, 24s and 2 6s. So that's out of 42 scoring shots, 22 were boundaries. That's quite a handy boundary percentage for
pretty good
for an innings. So maybe that's laying down a marker to the England selectors, saying don't count me out just yet. I've still got plenty to offer. But it was that absolutely stunning display. Obviously, the drop on 32 will be a painful one.
Yeah. Not going to forget that, are you?
those runs are 100% going down against your name in the book, aren't they? Yeah. Just another classic lesson in taking your catches there. But that's cricket.
Yeah, for sure. Max, final question on the women's side: who is going to make it to the playoffs? I'm going to go with the current top 3. I don't think Oval will get back in there. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I agree. Sadly and boringly, I would agree with you. I think the and the injury to was it Van Niekerk or that got injured?
Well, for slightly obvious reasons, I do get them confused, and in fact,
Yes,
I thought it.
I thought it
It's,
was
it
I
is
thought it
Van
was Van
Niekerk.
Niekerk that's injured.
It is
Yeah.
Van Niekerk. Just double check
So
that. So.
yeah, so that's a big loss for them, obviously. And Danny Van, obviously they dropped Danny Van Niekerk at the end of the previous 100. So to get Susie Bates into the side, so it's not the end of the world, but it does reduce the options that you have. And I think when you're getting into that stage where you need to win all your games, you need everything that you can to go your way. So probably the top three is the safe bet. So
Yeah, cool.
why not?
Right,
Safe.
on the men's side, we saw a bunch of decent highlights as well, and the table is extremely close. It's ridiculously close. With 3 matches to play, basically 7 of the 8 teams are within 1 win of being in a playoff position, and the other team is clear top. So pretty decent. This week we started with the rain off, and I went to Lords, and I just want to highlight this because I had the best bangers and mash of my life in the press box. That personally was a highlight. Then we had a sunny day at the Oval, who overcame their opposition, Manchester. Spencer Johnson, Max, bowled 20 balls for 1 run, taking 3 wickets. That was pretty good. Luke Wood, the day after, he took 3 balls in the first 10 balls of the match. So it was kind of bowlers doing crazy stuff to begin the week. Then we had a duel between Dan Lawrence and Joe Root on the batting side. 93 or 49 for Dan Lawrence, just edging out Joe Root's 72 off 35, taking London Spirit to a win over the Trent Rockets. And they were both kind of eclipsed by Jamie Overton the day after, who took 83, scored 83 off 30 balls, propelling Manchester's to win. Then finally, another highlight I wanted to point out was Tyrell Mills taking the second hat trick of the week, I think. Obviously on the men's side this time, so the sort of 1 each, helping Southern Brave roll Welsh Fire for just 87. As I said, things are pretty congested. Did you have a favourite highlight from the men's 100 action?
Well, I was I was down there as you were on Tuesday for that. It was Wednesday, wasn't it? Wednesday for that game between Oval and Manchester. I've got to say it's got to be the Spencer Johnson 3 for 1 off 20 balls. It was absolutely obscene. What was even more obscene was that he didn't win man of the match.
I mean, like
Heinrich Larsson scored like 60 off 20, which was a pretty good effort, and did really help propel Oval to the fairly imposing target that they set. But come on, like how often do you bowl 20 balls and concede 1 run? And it wasn't just it was quick. It was quick. It was fast. He was swinging it in with the new ball. He was knocking over the tail enders too quick for them. He looked unplayable, and it was. I was glad to be there. I was pretty much behind the arm for it. Got a pretty good view of the whole thing, and I doubt I'll see anything like it anytime soon. So, but I genuinely don't know how you can't give someone who does that.
Oh, it was insane. I mean, like it's probably about the equivalent of a batter hitting 6 sixes in an over, I think.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Like it's that kind of rareness and match impact. Like it was. I mean, the rest of the team could have done whatever they wanted almost, and it would have been so hard for them to kind of lose from that point. Max, we said at the beginning of the show we were going to do a power ranking, and we will do that. We'll do the traditional cricket podcast format where we don't tell each other which order we're going to pick the teams in, and we'll alternate between each other. Let's go worst to first, because it's sort of more interesting that way, and that will give you an indication of who we think will make the playoffs too. Who are you picking as the worst team in the 2023 men's 100?
All right. Well, currently, obviously, we're not going to go straight up the table, but I am going to start with the bottom of the table, because Trent Rockets are the ones that are adrift. Yes, they've got a game in hand, but Ish Sodi's come in to replace Imad Wasim, which is a bit of a downgrade in my eyes. Bearing in mind, Imad Wasim went at about 4 and over for the first 2 games he played. Samit Patel's still knocking around. Maybe it's 100 too many for him. So I think Trent Rockets, they've got the most to do. They're off the back of another defeat. I think it's tricky. It's tricky for them. I'm not hot on that side, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I'd be tempted to agree with that. For all of Joe Root's heroics in the last game, it was nice to see Root actually in a short format match going ballistic and nearly taking his team to the win. But you kind of do feel that they were actually one of my picks to do really well. You do feel that maybe they lack a little bit of firepower compared to some of the other teams. It's weird. I mean, like, I kind of also wouldn't be stunned. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. They're currently 36 for 3 off 35 balls against Welsh Fire. So it looks like they're going to probably lose that one as well. But I wouldn't be stunned if they turned it around a little bit, because they do have players like, Luke Wood, Daniel Sams, and Hales, of course, maybe to a lesser extent David Milan, who have got tricks up their sleeve, but so far I think they have probably been the least good team. I'm going to go 7th place, and I am going to pick London Spirit, which might be slightly controversial. Given that, in their 4 matches so far, they've won 1, lost 1, and had 2 rain-offs, which isn't giving us a great insight into their 11 or into how they play. But just based on sort of quality of player, I think they're a little bit worse than the team actually currently in 7th. So I'm going to put them as the 7th best team in the 100 so far, the 7th most likely to win the tournament.
Yeah, I had them a fair bit higher than that. Partly,
oh really?
I'm partly, biased by the whole Ashes vibes train. to be honest, because Zach Crawley is now back and he's ready to lead them to the promised land. They've got a game in hand. They've only had 4. 2 of them were rained off. The one they lost was a really tight defeat against the team who were top of the table. So I think there's reasons to be optimistic about the London Spirit side in my eyes. I do agree with you that the squad doesn't have the glamour perhaps that some of the other sides had, and they were robbed, of course, of a couple of overseas players, weren't they, before the tournament?
Yeah. There's no Maxwell.
There's no Maxwell, which is a big downgrade when you get to, was it Darryl Mitchell that replaced him?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, good player, but not Glenn Maxwell. But Dan Lawrence, Zach Crawley, Jordan Thompson's up and coming. Liam Dawson knows what he's doing. Nathan Ellis is a quality player. I think they're all right.
I mean, what I would say is that having the 2 teams that are current, that I think are 7th and 8th best in the tournament, being relatively stacked with good players, is an indicator for people who are maybe looking around at where the best leagues are, and doing that kind of comparison across different franchise leagues is an indicator that the 100 actually is pretty good. Like, I don't think either of those teams are complete wastemen, to be honest. Like, it's not uncommon. I mean, we've seen it in the PSL recently with teams, putting out awful sides down in 6th place. CPL, you generally get a duffer. Even in the IPL, like neither of those teams are doing a Sunrisers, I don't think, in the IPL. No. If you gave 7 of those players Indian citizenship and said, right, go, you're now replacing Sunrisers, I think they'd actually kind of be okay. I'm not saying they'd make the playoffs, but I don't think they would.
It wouldn't be quite the embarrassment that they have been.
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe it's slightly harsh to pick on Sunrisers now that they've made a move for Daniel Vettori and so on, but I don't think they'd be the worst team in the IPL. I think it's sort of testament to the quality of the 100 this year and the fact that all of the men's domestic English players are turning out, that Actually, this is a really good comp. In 6th place, I am.
Is it my hair, isn't it?
Is it? Go on then.
You just did London Spirit.
Oh, all right, yeah, go on then. 6th.
You can have 6th. I don't mind. Well, I'll have to. I'll shunt up. I mean, I was being really harsh on this lot, I think, but I'll shunt up from where I had them at 7th to 6th. The Welsh Fire, but the reason, well, there's one key thing.
Disagree.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
Yeah.
But there's one key thing for me, and that's that they lose Shaheen Afridi tomorrow.
Well, yeah, right. This is true. I do think from this game onwards, is it Lockie Ferguson and
Matt Henry?
Matt Henry, yeah, coming in. They're big downgrades on Harris Ralph and Shaheen Afridi. Like there is no way around that. I do think that Welsh Fire's domestic core isn't too bad, and haven't we seen a little bit of YJB back in action, who's pretty good. I take your point, and I'll accept Welsh Fire in 6th, but I do think based on the tournament so far that they are better than 6th. They might be the 6th most likely to win the tournament at this stage, but I'd still say they have been better than that. Going into 5th place. The last of the bottom teams, I'm going to go with Birmingham Phoenix, and again, this is it's a tough one on them, and a tough one on our pal Dan Weston. But they basically haven't played that well. Like the team is really
the team's
good.
Really good. What's going on?
And they beat the team. They beat Oval, didn't they, yesterday? And actually reasonably convincingly.
Yeah.
So I'm certainly not saying that they can't win the tournament, or that they're not one of the better teams. But I think so far they have been a bit iffy. So back over to you.
Yeah. Next up for me then is the Superchargers. I've got next. I've lost track of what number we're on now, but
we're on 4.
We're on 4. Yeah. Superchargers up next. Mostly on the back of the fact that they've lost 2 on the spin. I mean, they're a solid side. They've got good players, most bases well covered, but and they're also unaffected by players leaving, which will help them. But just maybe are they heading for a bit of questionable form just at exactly the wrong time of the tournament? Good start and then starting to tank. Are they getting the jitters? Are they got the yips?
We'll see. I'm not overwhelmed with their team, to be honest, but results are results.
The central contacts is a wasted spot, isn't it?
Yeah. That is true. That's definitely true. They've had a few sort of pretty decent performances from guys. Banton went ballistic in one match, didn't he?
Yeah.
And we've seen Reece Topley
as well.
Yeah, Reece Topley's actually bowled very, very well. Who deserves a little shout out. So maybe I'm being a little bit critical of them. You forced me into a bit of a corner here, I think, Max, because I would have this team actually much further down the list, and this might be because I saw them live and they were crap. Manchester Originals, I'm gonna put as 3rd. Yeah. I would actually swap in my power ranking. These would be swapped with Welsh Fire, but
okay,
they're not. They're actually pretty decent, aren't they? They've had again some pretty incredible performances. We mentioned Jamie Overton. Butler's been knocking around. If Phil Salt fires, I think Phil Salt's got like 15 runs or 25 runs in the tournament. I think he's averaging 5. If he fires, then I could definitely see them posing some risks to other teams in the tournament. But I would say 3 with an asterisk that I would like them lower, and I've been forced to put them at 3. Back over to
yeah. I mean, it's fair enough, but I mean their side is pretty stacked. Like especially power with the bat.
Yeah.
And Jamie Overton's been smacking it all over the place, but you raise a valid point. They've massively underperformed.
How much would Jamie Overton be worth on the international transfer market, by the way? Like a guy who's not really going to get a look in for England, but can do something that almost every other team in the world needs. You could put him up there, and
I
reckon
mean,
you could get a
he'd be
good
100% in there at the 100 million pound defensive midfielder market right
yeah,
now.
yeah. Except he's a bit more flash than that, isn't he? Like he's not. Anchors, they're the defensive midfielders.
Yeah,
Or
he's very much an Enzo Fernandez, Moises Caicedo style of
yeah.
defensive
Oh, I see what
midfielder.
you mean. All action. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Back over to you then, too. I think I know what you're going to pick.
Yeah, well, next up will be the Southern Brave. For me, they've just sort of kind of gone about their business. I mean, they're 2-2 like almost everyone else, which is kind of surprising, given especially when you look at that, the Tymal Mills hat trick, for example. The that hammering of Welsh Fire did help their net run rate out. And they're just, they're always there, aren't they? The last two hundreds, they've been top class. Obviously, they don't have
really good bowling
Archer again, but yeah, they're Chris Jordan, Tymal Mills. They've got so many bases covered. They're just a solid side, and they're proving it again.
Yeah, and that leaves Oval Invincibles to round things off. And Max, I would go. I think they're the best team in the 100. I would actually go further than that. I think they're one of the best teams in franchise cricket at the moment. Their lineup that they can put out: Jason Roy, Will Jacks, Heinrich Klaassen, Sam Curran, Jordan Cox. Jordan Cox has broken his finger now, so we're not actually going to see any more of him. And Klaassen also leaving. But just this is what they've had at various points in the tournament. Sam Billings. And they've been pretty flexible with that order, with Narine also sort of thrown in to the mix. Then backing that up with the ball. Tom Curran, they've had Tom Curran play as well, haven't they? So that's another guy.
He's been batting really well.
Yeah, who actually has been batting really well. Then bowling, Narine, Atkinson, Spencer Johnson. Nathan Salter is not the best leg spinner, I don't think, in world cricket, and I think that's a fair weakness. But they've got sort of 9 out of 10 like really nailed down in that order, and I would say of the two that aren't nailed down, Spencer Johnson and Salter, who I think are probably not necessarily amazing. Spencer Johnson has had some really good moments in the tournament, maybe the best individual performance on the men's side. And Salter hasn't been bad. Like, he's not been great, but he hasn't actually been bad.
Yeah, but also, Narayan's gone today, and Zampa's come in to replace him. So, they've lost something with the ball, but they've also gained a really good leg spinner. Yeah. So they can mix things up with the variations they've got in their side with, Sam Curran, Tom Curran. They've just got so much flexibility. They can work around that really well. And I think they've underperformed the last 2 years, haven't they? But they're not that different a side. They fixed a couple of problems, filled a couple of holes, and now I guess they're reaping the benefits of that. And also they've got the world's hottest property at the moment, Gus Atkinson.
Well, Gus Atkinson, I think there's a couple of guys that have really come through as well. So Gus Atkinson, obviously excellent. I think Sam Curran and Tom Curran's batting has significantly improved year on year from 2 years ago. They were both decent last year, but I would say even better this year probably. And then Will Jacks, who we kind of knew was good, has played some terrific innings for them. And like really, you've got to be thinking we'll be playing as England's opening batter in the next T20 World Cup. Like,
he's above Jason Roy in the pecking order.
Seems like that's the trajectory. But yeah, it's a good side. It's a really, really strong side. I'll let you answer it, Max. Are they the current best in a T20 Champions League? Would they be the favourites?
I mean, we all want to see. We all want to see, don't we? Oval Invincibles taking on the Chennai Super Kings at the Chepauk. That's the matchup the entire cricketing world wants to see. I'm not sure if I'd have them as the best. I think there's a couple of as much as you name that lineup and it sounds phenomenal. Like Jason Roy's form hasn't been. He's had a couple of moments, but his form is not. He's not the player he was. And like you say, I think the sort of perhaps some of the weaknesses with in the spin department could be exploited. I think they've probably got maybe some slightly bigger weaknesses than some of the maybe the top sides in the IPL, for example. But I think if they got to play on their home turf, then they got a
be a handful.
chance. Yeah, absolutely.
Be a handful. Yeah,
and it's
Right,
quite
Max.
nice. It's quite nice seeing Gus Atkinson suddenly being this superstar that's going to make his way into the England team.
He's rapid as well.
Yeah,
No,
I honestly don't know where it came from. The first T20 game of the season, the Blast, I was at Lords, and it was Surrey, Middlesex, and I was sat side on, and Gus Atkinson was bowling, and I was like, that was quick. Where did that come from? I'd love to know how fast he's bowling. Now everyone knows how fast he's bowling.
Really fast.
Really fucking fast.
Yeah. I saw in the Wiz, just to wrap up part one, I saw Wisden named they had their writers named their Ashes 11 for the next
2027
Ashes series. And Gus Atkinson was in like 2 of the 4 teams. It's like,
it's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing how carried away we get in this country as soon as someone bowls over 90 miles an hour. It's good fun.
It is funny. Right, we're going to wrap up part 1 then, and we'll come back with part 2. We'll be talking about Ben Stokes coming back to save England, or not really save England, make England even better, and India having a bit of a disaster in the West Indies.